is true. But yeah, when you've had it your whole life, you get used to it. Okay, so basically Frankin Gear is a apparel and accessory company. It says right there. I wanted to capture the relentless nature of the people of Franklin. I've lived in Franklin most of my life, grew up there, and we were always sort of the redheaded stepchild of the Lakes region. You know, they didn't want to admit that we were even part of the Lakes region, and we always sort of had to have a little chip on our shoulder because everyone, you know, when we were in school, you know, the other kids from other schools would make fun of us, stuff like that. So I wanted to try and do something to kind of help that image and change it. So we'll start from the beginning a little bit. Oh yeah, oops, I see. Their clicker that they gave us didn't work, so I'm just going to run over and steal my antenna here so my mouse will work with this. I don't know what my score was for running it over here. There we go. All right. All right, so first thing, I'm going to give you 50 years and 30 seconds. I got to, you know, obviously we're here to talk about the business, but you got to kind of understand where I came from. First of all, I was born. I think most of you did that. When I was 18 years old, I became a police officer. I was probably one of the last 18-year-old police officers in the state. When I turned 20, they made it 21, and I got grandfathered in. When I was a police officer, I went to St. A's and got a criminal justice degree. A few years later, I ended up becoming a corporate security specialist. From there, I became a manager. Then, to move up further, I decided to get a business degree and ended up as a security director. And now I'm selling hats and t-shirts. We'll see the progression of how we got there, though. So actually, I'm going to do this up front. I actually stole this idea from watching some other presentations on Million Cups. And the guy had a great plan, which was basically to tell you up front what we're looking for, so during the course of this presentation, you can get the wheels moving already. So a lot of the stuff I need help with is internet marketing, social media, Google Ads, Facebook, etc. I'm doing some of this stuff already, but I want to find something that's a little more automated, so it can do the work for me. I want to make sure that I'm targeting the right people, the right places, and all that. And you know, if you could just start searching the internet for all, there's a million companies out there going to say, use our product, pay us X, you know, number of dollars a month, and we're gonna, you know, make the world a better place for you. But you know, you can go down the wrong rabbit hole sometimes. So that's something I really need help to figure out. Obviously, feedback on Frankin Gear, NewHampshire.com is always welcome. Of course, one thing people say is, why didn't you go with Frankin Gear? Well, these guys took it from me. This is Franklin Machine and Gear Corporation in Houston, Texas. Now, obviously, they don't do the same thing that I do, but they got the Frankin Gear name. So that made it a little tough at first, too, because of SEO. But that is something that's improving. So also, I've got to work on my business plan and loan application processes. So that's stuff that I need help with. Right now, this is my business plan. This is my Amex card. So far, it's working pretty well. Okay, so first thing people are going to say, all right, Bill, we're going to put that cart before the horse. Well, why'd you do that? Well, I ask myself that question. Well, you know, why not do what you're told? You're supposed to, you know, you have your idea, and you develop your business and marketing plans, incorporate, seek funding, design products, build a website, market products, sell products. Well, I started my company back in March of this year. I changed its focus to Frankin Gear probably in like July. So I could do all this stuff, and you know what, boom, it's going to be February. And is February a great time to be selling stuff? No, it's right after Christmas, nobody has any money. So I'm looking at this, I know I'm going to do this, I know it's going to work on whatever level, but I just want to get out there and have this thing working before Christmas. Because you know, when it hits February and things are slow, that's a good time to then do all the other stuff. So sometimes if you do put the cart before the horse, you can make it work. So I have prepared a little. I am just totally wrong. The first thing I did to prepare was a failed business. Check, I got that. Now, of course, failed is probably the wrong word. It should be it died an early death. But the great thing about failure is that you learn from it. So the company I had was Walter Technology Group. And first thing I learned was don't name your company after your partner. Now, Yakabuchi Technology Group would have been kind of hard for people to spell and say. You have a nice, easy last name, so we went with that. So after that, the next thing I learned was don't have a partner. You'll find out why. Like any new relationship, it looks so great going in. He was a computer expert, I was a security expert. We were servicing small, medium businesses with their computer and security needs. We were helping security companies figure out the world of IP as it transitioned from coax cable and VCRs to IP and all that. So things were going good, but the problem was the computer expert used his knowledge to embezzle about $20,000 from this early startup. And of course, the security expert used his expertise and he caught him. Now, I learned how to interrogate, and it's not waterboarding, although it's very tempting to want to waterboard him. But that was the fastest interrogation I ever did, because I just basically said, you know what I've been doing all my life and everything. I won't be talking to you unless I already know everything that's going on. So that was my world record. He admitted to it in like 5 seconds. But anyways, so what I did this time is I started a company called BY1 LLC. And BY1, Bill Yakabuchi 1. Actually, what that was is when I went back for my business degree, I worked on the side at Lowe's. And that was my login to get into the computer was BY1. Your first initial, your last initial, and if you're the only one, you're one. You have another one with the same, you're number 2. So I said, all right, well, I guess I'm going to be a security and safety consultant. That seems to make sense with all my background and all. I set it up, I started doing it. One thing is I know Franklin area is not a good site for that. When I was a security director, I worked a while in California, I was in Indiana, mostly in Massachusetts. So I was working in areas like Worcester, Boston area, so plenty of opportunity there. But after the failed company and all, I was in New Hampshire, I was up here. I really enjoyed the atmosphere of Franklin and all that they have to offer. So I definitely want to stick around. And I said to myself, do I really want to be driving to Massachusetts every day just to make a buck? So I said, all right, scratch that. But the beauty of naming it BY1, and I knew this going in, is I didn't call it Yakabuchi Security Consulting or anything like that. It's a very generic name, so I can make this whatever I want as I learn and transition. So I still do it. I can still do the security consulting. That's sort of on the back burner right now. But I found that after 20-something years, I felt like it was time for something different. It really did, it didn't capture me anymore. Another thing too is don't quit your day job. So when I moved back to New Hampshire after the failed company and all that, I was thinking of writing a book about security, thinking of some other things. So I wanted to get a part-time job to just make enough money to get by. So I worked for an airport shuttle company. And so that's another thing that obviously a lot of startup businesses have to deal with, is you have to deal with the fact that sometimes you have to work another job while you're building. So that's always a challenge, especially doing this, because nobody wants to go to the airport in the middle of the day. Everybody wants you to get up at 3:30 in the morning or get there at 8 o'clock at night. So how did I get inspired to come up with Frankin Gear? Well, one thing I did is when I came back to Franklin, I started getting involved in the community. Having been a police officer there for several years, I knew the community well, I knew its issues, and I wanted to get involved. Some of my inspiration, I'll give you some people here. This is Jo Brown. She owns Franklin Studio, which is a cafe and gift shop, and she's also a city councilor. She's also on the planning board. By the way, Franklin Studio was started as a nonprofit. She wanted to establish something in the downtown Franklin to draw people down there, and because she knew the coming revitalization that was going on. And Todd Workman, if you have ever heard of him, he didn't grow up in Franklin, but he spent a lot of time in the summer there. He was from Guilford, but his grandparents lived in Franklin. And after he became successful in business, he came back and wanted to redevelop Franklin. He saw the potential there, and he bought a lot of the businesses down there. Franklin sometimes had a bad reputation because the downtown was run down. What we had is we had a lot of absentee landlords that lived in other states. They just wanted money for Section 8 housing in the upper levels of the stores. They didn't do anything for the stores. and everything was dilapidated. So he's basically come along and bought all those, most of the downtown. He and other developers, I won't say most, but quite a bit. And he's developing them and working towards that. Now Oscar, I'll mention Oscar. He's another great guy in Franklin. He started Take Root, which is a co-working space. He also started A Million Cups in Franklin. Mm-hmm. He also brought a TEDx event to Franklin too, which a lot of people wouldn't expect to see something like that there. So that's another great job. And of course, I got to finish by talking about Marty Parshon. Marty owns Outdoor New England, and that's a kayaking shop that he started there. He used to be a Sikorsky engineer. He used to do avionics on Black Hawk helicopters. So I guess like me, he's like, time for something different. So he took what he loved to do and he turned it into a company. But he also had a great vision in which he recognized that Franklin was in a great position to have a whitewater park. And that's what we're working on. So there's a lot of potential coming to Franklin in the future. So Franklin itself is a story of relentlessness. The relentlessness, hard to say that this morning, of all the people. You get a sense of that just from the river here. This is a great view. This is right here in downtown, where we have the Trestle Bridge. As you can see, there's some great water there. So that's obviously something that can draw people to the downtown. This would be the first whitewater park in New England. There's several of them in Colorado and other parts of the country. Now, of course, winter doesn't stop us. These guys are kayaking in the winter, and then towards the end of the year, oh, by the way, Franklin also has a ski hill. And so what we do is at the end of the ski season, we build these little runs here, and we take our kayaks down the hill, which is pretty insane. It's pretty fun, though. So these guys, was it on New Year's Day, they do a run down the river on New Year's Day and land at the park, and they're all covered with icicles on their face, and it's great. So here's some more inspiration. Franklin has one of those nice old-fashioned downtowns. See a lot of brick buildings. It's all compacted. It's not strip molly or anything like that. We also have a lot of great mills. And to give you, this was one of the major mills in town. They're going to put 100 apartments in that mill. There was another mill in town. They already put 40 apartments into it. So there's going to be 140 new apartments in downtown Franklin to draw them down there. We also have the Opera House. The Opera House is actually in the City Hall. During the Depression, they had all these make-work programs, and a lot of times they did stuff like this. And so we've got a lot of opportunity for things in Franklin. Of course, here's another thing too. You don't necessarily think of this stuff when you think of Franklin. That's Franklin Falls Dam. It has some of the greatest mountain biking in the state. We've got over 20 trails there. They also do disc golf, all sorts of things at Franklin Falls Dam. Fortunately, I'm in walking distance from there, so it's awesome for me. We also have a lot of great parks like Odell, which is surrounded by one of our 3 rivers in town. And of course, there's Webster Lake. We're on the Northern Rail Trail. All this great stuff to inspire me. So obviously, Franklin has inspired me, but what mostly inspired me is these people. These are the citizens of Franklin. As recycled percussion came to town, and the town came to recycled percussion. So that's where I get my inspiration for this. Is they are sometimes maligned when certain things go wrong, but the problems that Franklin has experienced, the same problems that Concord, Laconia, Manchester, all these places experienced. But somehow we seem to get a little more notice on these things. All right, so Frankin Gear. So how that started is actually, with my so-called day job of driving limo, I get to meet people from all over the world. And get a lot of feedback from them. And I had a regular customer who works in a tech company in Boston, and I was talking to her about my ideas and how I wanted to do something to promote Franklin. And she said, well, I can help you create some basic designs. So we wanted to draw on the mills, the industrial heritage of Franklin, and so we came up with these various things, and then eventually got a designer to make sure that they really work good. So these are the 3 major logos for Frankin Gear. We have Frankin Gear itself and Frankin Girl and Guy. And why did we add Frankin Girl and Guy? Well, the idea too with the website is we wanted to promote the great people of Franklin, and also for the kids of Franklin to understand that you can be from Franklin and you can become something, because sometimes they got the impression that they didn't. We all know how the state funds schools, And if you don't have a lot of property value in your town, your schools suffer. And Franklin certainly suffers from that. But you can still, like anything, buckle down and you can make something of yourself in Franklin. So, for example, one thing I'm going to do after the New Year's, I'm going to be doing, I'll be doing video interviews with different people from Franklin, putting it on my blog. So again, Joe's a perfect example. She, again, owns the Franklin Studio, which is, by the way, the only brick and mortar place that carries Frankin Gear. So I appreciate her for that as well.
Bill, we need to have some time for questions.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, let me blast through this stuff. Okay. All right, so these are some other guys. All right, so here's the website. I've been adding different things to it. I mean, at first it's kind of basic. One thing we did is we took about 400 pictures of my relatives at the Franklin Studio and in Franklin, and we started adding some faces to the website because obviously that's gonna make it better. So this is basic stuff there. One thing is 10% of our net profits are going to go to STEM programs. I think my impression is New Hampshire, especially northern New Hampshire, it's everything relies on tourism, and that's great and it helps. But we need to still promote the industry. So anyways, these are some of the other products that we're coming out with. So we're moving away from just having T-shirts and that. Now this obviously inspired us. So here's like one of the other designs that we're doing. So we're making Franklin-centric designs. And quickly, there's Marty again. This is the whitewater park that's going to be built. And a lot of people think this is a whitewater park. No. When you say water park, that's what they think of. Now, this is a whitewater park. This is one that's being built elsewhere. And what they do is they modify the river to increase the obstacles that you go through. Maybe we can use your your monitoring program going down the river. That'd be cool. So why am I doing this besides all those other routes? Well, again, with the whitewater park coming to town, we're looking at potentially $6 billion plus a year in revenues. It's time for me to establish myself before that. There was no Franklin-centric gear for tourism, and we are actually starting to see a lot of tourists already. We've seen people from England and California, all sorts of places. So anyways, that's that. So we'll go ahead and start with questions. Yes, sir.
All right.
I started with you.
Yeah, exactly. So you have this great opportunity with the whitewater event, and then also the ski hill and all that of tourism coming to Franklin. Have you thought about trying to partner with those organizations?
Oh, definitely. Matter of fact, one thing I have to do, I have a great relationship with Marty and a lot of the other people. I actually helped. That's a long story, but I helped build a restaurant that's going to be in downtown Franklin, and I worked with him on that. It was through Todd Workman in one of his buildings. And that's another thing. There's already an awesome restaurant in town, which also used to be my grandfather's store, so that's kind of neat for me. There's going to be more restaurants coming in town, so a lot of opportunity. And one thing I'm thinking of, I actually basically want to provide the merch for the water park is my goal.
Nice.
Did you hear that, Marty? Things like that. Yes.
So obviously the concept is based around your pride in Franklin specifically.
Yes.
But how do you see this idea scaling once everybody in Franklin owns it?
Yeah, well, that's one thing. Your excellent point is the people of Franklin are awesome, but there's about 8,500 people. I can't make this. It's inspired by Franklin. Franklin is the story behind the product. But you're right. It has to be scaled beyond Franklin. One thing is there's about 49 other Franklins in the country. Again, one thing I plan to do is simply go on Google Maps and look at them and see which ones have rivers and stuff like that, and where this can work with that. But another thing too is I'm also looking at partnering with other organizations. Like again, one thing is as you mentioned, I mentioned talking about like the water park potential. Also, I'm on the board of the Franklin Outing Club, which runs the ski hill. I just joined them, and they also run our winter carnival event. So, and just so you know, that my business model is basically I'm using print-on-demand services that also do all the fulfillment for me. So my margin on the products is less, but I don't have to sit in my basement or whatever throwing things in boxes. So basically, in a sense, I'm a marketing division of that fulfillment company. I create the products, design them, put them on there. So the only inventory I have is at the studio, and that represents maybe a tenth of what I can carry online. So, but with the Winter Carnival, I'm actually going to be creating t-shirts for them. So when people want to get a Winter Carnival t-shirt, they're actually going to end up on my website, and I'm going to build that out. So one thing I'm looking at is partnering with all the various organizations in town. That a lot of people like the idea of not having inventory, because if you ever worked even in your own company, or if you work for a nonprofit or something like that, and you put out t-shirts or whatever, what do you got to do? You got to order all these different sizes, and you always get stuck with all this inventory at the end that you can't move. So the beauty of on-demand is that we don't have that as an issue. Yes, sir.
Are all your apparel, is it all cotton?
A lot of it is cotton now. That's one thing. The company I'm working with is expanding their inventory all the time. They take a lot of input from us, so I definitely want to expand away from what the basic stuff is there now. So
I'm just thinking that if you were to capitalize on the kayaking market,
yeah.
People are going to choose clothes that dry the second you get out of the water.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, personally, I love all the wicking type of materials. I mean, other than my stuff, I'm wearing mostly Columbia type stuff, those type of things. So actually, that's the direction I want to go in eventually. But this is just a start. We'll hit the ground with that. But yeah, I want to wear clothes that are comfortable for outdoor activities, and make that for our customers.
So do you see your target for expansion more of like capturing the essence of Franklin and not necessarily like the community spirit, but more of like the essence of what Franklin is? And
Exactly. Well, the thing is, Franklin's story isn't really different from a lot of other parts of the country. I mean, people struggling with the new economy. Going from a manufacturing base to tech, and people dealing with technological unemployment. Well, some people try to scare us with thoughts of immigration. Most people's unemployment issues are due to technology, not to people coming in from other countries. So it's a struggle that a lot of people are going through, is to figure out, especially actually someone like being 50 years old. I mean, for a younger person, this is what you're growing up in. There's a lot of people like me that we're sort of on that edge. We grew up in the old way, and we have a toe in the new ways, but we still have to figure out how to work. I guess that's one thing too, is now you tend to have to be your own, you have to be everything now. I mean, it used to be you would just give your resume to a company and you'd specialize in something. Now you have to market yourself, you have to do everything. So it's something that we all have to try and, but yeah, basically it's a universal sort of thing what Franklin's gone through. So the idea is that other people can relate to that. Yes, back there.
Thank you. Following up on a question from the gentleman with regards to scalability.
Yes.
Franklin was named after Ben Franklin, and on the tourism aspect, you could be promoting that. It's shocking what you'll find here. Franklin is community focused, respectful of yourself, something a bit more of a global appeal, going on the Ben Franklin theme, so that you can grow the company outside the border.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely want to look at any aspect that can help grow it to a wider audience. Again, and part of it is, obviously there's a lot of opportunity with the tourism coming with the water park, and I know a lot of people, they wait till something comes in and say, oh, look, there's a water park, time for me to get in, but that's too late, because all the time it takes you to get in there. So I'm like, all right, again, so I understand. Obviously, it's a process. I'm going to learn and build along the way and expand out. But so I know the opportunity exists for products within Franklin with the tourism. But I'm not going to market. I'm not going to count on that alone. I'm going to obviously try to reach a global market. The thing is, with a global market, you don't have to capture a large percentage of people. You just have to find the people that that can see the story that you're telling, and that draws them in. And again, I think it is a universal issue. I mean, people across the country are dealing with some of the same issues that Franklin's dealing with, so people are going to relate to that.
So we're about out of time, but I just want to end with the same question I asked Tim. In just a minute, what can people here do to support you as an entrepreneur and help you be successful with Frankin Gear?
Yeah, basically, as I mentioned, I do want to try and figure out more of the social media advertising and all. That's big. It'd be nice to talk to a human. I mean, when you go online and you look at all these sites, they'll tell you how awesome they are, but sometimes it's good to have back and forth with a human who can kind of help you out. So obviously, anything to do with marketing is good, and as I said, I am going to write the business plan. I know it sounds crazy that I waited this long. But one thing too is, this is the first time I've done this. People write up business plans. It's good to have your feet wet and know what you're doing a little bit so that you can actually make some realistic projections and all. So that's where I mostly need help, is in those two areas.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.